carry the cottons, so they have cotton swabs for filters. I just have my regular, it's just a regular 1cc insulin syringe. I use the long tip ones, so it's not because they're longer. And then this is, this used to be my keychain, but I had to give my key to my apartment. This is how bad I had to give my key to my apartment back, but this is my keychain. And it's just a tie, so I can tie off. It has like a loop built into it. That's it. I usually have a spoon and stuff. I use, I generally use a cooker, like, or instead of a spoon to do my stuff out of, which and all that is like I just, I rip the bottom off of a can, and so just like a little surface to do my stuff in, and then you heat it up, with a lighter on the bottom to kind of boil it off. So I mean, that's just my everyday kit. Like, I just carry that on me all the time, and I don't worry about it.
You said you've been addicted to the whole process and like the whole kit.
Oh yeah, the whole process and the kit and like the getting high. Like, it's not even about getting high. It's like, you have to go, you do whatever you do to get the heroin, and then you put it in. You put it in, and then you add your water, and then you cook it, and then you have to draw it up. And you tie off, and then when you shoot up and get the flag back and stuff, it's just like, it's like a 5-minute process, you know what I mean? So like when you do it, it's like you get addicted to doing it too, because it's not just, it's like the system. It's just like how they say that smokers have the oral fixation, where like they need to have something like their hand-mouth connection, like you get the connection with it, so you're really addicted to the process too.
Something weird. He said like he wasn't getting my calls and it was only working when he was calling me.
Oh, it's Ary. Leave me a message and I'll get back to you when I can, unless I don't even like you, and then I will not call you back later.
This is New Hampshire. Don't let the sun catch you crying. The lies, the time for your tears. Your heart may be broken tonight, but tomorrow.
I can't remember if I was quite 16 or quite 17 years old, but I believe I was about 17 years old. I had a friend, and I used to sell weed. And I had a friend, and I was selling him weed, and he had cancer really bad, and he had a caregiver that took care of him. I would sell them like a half ounce of weed every couple of days, and then after like a while, I don't remember how long it was. Eventually, he actually died of cancer, and so I still used to, so I hadn't heard from the other guy that lived with him for a long time. So at one point, I went over there and like went and talked to him, and I was like, hey man, what's up? Like, you haven't called me for a while. I figured you would definitely need some pot, like, with all the shit that's going on and stuff. And he's like, oh, I mean, I have no money. Everything's fucked, because like, his income came from all the government subsidies they were getting for him having cancer. So between the two of them, they had no income after he died. He said he had all these pills and asked me if I would trade some of them for some weed. And like, I just said, well, let me see what they are. And he pulls out this like giant plastic tote, like one of the Rubbermaid totes. It was like this big, like 5 feet long, yay tall. And it was essentially full pill bottles of Percocets, Dilaudids, fentanyl patches, fentanyl lollipops, Marinol pills, any and all narcotic that can be used for pain that they give to cancer patients at that time. So I mean, I told him, yeah, I could trade him some of them for him, and so I ended up trying them. And the first opiate I ever tried was an Opana 60, and I learned later that they're like, those can be like fatal, like if you don't have a tolerance. And like, so I crushed up one of those and snorted it, and I was sick for like a day and a half, and that was ridiculous. Like, it fucked me up so much I don't even know. Like I didn't, at the time I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. That was fucking stupid. Like, all I did was lay on the ground and puke for a day. Like, there was nothing good about it. And so I got into conversations with him about it, and he wanted to get rid of them. And he asked me, because he knew when I was still in high school at the time, or I had just dropped out, so he knew that I would, like, you know, I knew kids and stuff around town, and asked me if I knew anybody that wanted any. So like I had like an absurd amount of all these pills, and he gave me a super good price on them because we didn't really know what they were worth. It was a retarded amount of money to be had. So it got to the point where I would sell like one perk 30 and then do like 20 of them, because I could pay for the one. You know, I could pay for all 30 of them, and I could do one and pay for 20 of them, and that's how. And then so I was 17 years old and had a rampant opiate addiction.
I think it's everywhere. I think you could go into any town, probably in New Hampshire right now, and find just about any kind of drug that you wanted. So I think, you know, we want to think it's a certain group of people that are addicted to drugs, but it's everywhere. It's every socioeconomic group. So.
Yeah, I don't see it being unique to here. That socioeconomic, it has no boundaries.
No,
and
it doesn't.
And any one of the communities in our school district has this issue. You pick up the local police lottery, you pick up the recent indictments in the Granite State News. There's people from all over New England that are being picked up in Conway and Wolfboro and Ossipee. And, so it's not unique to us.
Okay.
It looks nice, and Wolfboro is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
But there's same issues here as anywhere else.
I think people in Wolfboro don't necessarily want to believe it's happening here.
Even though 800 students isn't necessarily small, and when you've been here for a long time, you come in contact with a lot of kids. And you pick up the local newspaper every week, and you see someone was arrested, or you see somebody has passed away. That impacts us. Those are the kids that we've worked with, we invested our time in, we care about. My biggest concern is the 18 to 35 range. What are these kids do when they leave us? I mean, some go off to college, some don't. What do they do when they leave us? And I think that's the part. And we hear through the grapevine that so-and-so overdosed, or we see the sibling in here. We still have siblings here that lost older siblings to this. You know, we get a report on a Tuesday that a mom OD'd, and we have 3 other children in school. So that impacts us, because we're in education because we care about kids. We're not in it for the money, but
yeah.
It's and that's the impact that we feel. And it's just, as a community, you pick yourself up and you wrap around families and you try to help them. And the role of the school isn't just to educate anymore, and it hasn't been for years. The role of the school, we've performed funerals in our school because the family had no other way to go. So those are things that we've done over time as a school district, just to support our community of kids that we see every day.
It's hard. Now, I've worked in this in this area for a long, long time. So, you know, I was just talking to someone recently that, you know, I was a preschool teacher, and I had this little girl who was 4 years old in my preschool class, and also worked with her in another program when she was a young mom, and, you know, she died of a drug overdose. And it's hard. It's hard. It's just like, wow, what happened? You knew them when they were so young and innocent, and then, boy, what happened in the meantime? It's pretty heart-wrenching.
Crazy things happen sometimes. But I mean, like, I just can't believe that, like, shit's such a fucking problem up here. Like, I mean, it's ridiculously beautiful up here, like, in this part of the country.
This is a really nice area, but one of the reasons I'm taking you out here is that we were talking about the drug problem, and, you know, we find needles in distant, far-off locations, like right here. We find needles on the Bridge Falls path. We find needles off in the woods, along with other drug paraphernalia. You know, we're finding the remnants and the refuse of the of the drug problem everywhere. And I want to say that the light switch for Wolfboro, not necessarily in a moment, but I think the light switch went on right around December 2014 when we had about 5 drug overdose deaths within about a 30-day period, and some of them were residents that died outside of the state, but died nonetheless from an opiate overdose. And I think that was what got everybody's attention. That's what happened. And and before that, they heard something and they said, well, what was that? Sandwich had a problem, or what was this? We heard some rumblings about some drug epidemic up in Conway, but that's up there. And then all of a sudden, boom, it hit Wolfboro, and you had 5 young people perish within about a 30-day period of time. And right over the Christmas holidays, a lot of it happened between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I think that's what caught everybody by surprise. And all of a sudden, the problem was right on their doorstep. The one thing that I think I've been taught very well to do over the years is do my job. I've been taught very well how to be a police officer, how to run investigations and so forth. And of course, I have a lot of specialty training in especially drug investigations. But the one thing that I was never taught is, how do you tell a mother, father, or a brother or a sister or grandparent that their child, their loved one has died? How do you do that? And that is something that I was never taught. You can try and do it as compassionately as possible, but how do you do that? How do you break the news? There is no strategy here that you can figure out, and if somebody does have a strategy, I'm all ears. I want to hear it. But that's the hardest thing. How do you tell a young child that their mother or their father is just never coming home again? How do you do that? And how do you do that at Christmas time? How do you do that at the holidays? Because that's what the killer is. That's the hardest thing. I'm trying to keep people safe, and man, it's hard. It's really hard.
Like when I really first got hooked was the first time I ever shot up, like injected with the needle. After I did that, like I never turned back. I set up a shot and tied off and injected, and as soon as I took that, before I even like untied my arm to like let the tourniquet go, I just felt like somebody like cracked an egg of the best feeling over the back of my head, and like warmth just like spread out through my body, and like everything kind of just went away, and I felt like fucking Superman. I got living in a tent. I'm pretty much basically homeless. I don't really have anywhere to go. I don't have anybody to take me in at this point, so I'm just living here. I've been here for like 3 weeks now, almost a month. Prior to that, I was living in Rochester and like had a job in an apartment and stuff, and then I relapsed and lost everything.
Is this the first time you've been homeless or had to live in the woods?
No, I've been homeless, like this is, I don't know, countless times. I mean, I can't, I've lived in this particular spot itself at least 4 or 5 times now, so I mean, being homeless in general, I've been homeless for I've been basically homeless for 6 years at this point. A lot of my days I spend panhandling out on the highway. I go from there, until I can get enough money to catch a buzz, pretty much, and then I usually go out. I don't have a phone, so I usually just go right out to my dealer's house and grab a couple tickets or a bundle and get high for the day, and then I start all over again by like noontime.
And
what are my usual day?
Describe what tickets and bundles are.
Oh, a ticket's like a 1/10 of a gram of heroin. They call it a ticket because it's folded up in a piece of paper, and then a bundle would just be 10 of the tickets. I have a almost 5-year-old daughter I don't see. My friends all fucking suck, and like most of them suck dick for dope and stuff, and they're horrible people. And I have basically nobody in my life. Like I burned every bridge that's around as far as like friends and family members go and stuff like that. So I mean, it's just, to me at this point, it's the only thing that gives me any joy in life.
Addiction is really, it's a disease, okay? A lot of people get it, it's moral failing, all that stuff, where they stigmatize people because they think that it's something that they can prevent, okay? That's all baloney. We are wired in various ways to survive as a species, okay? One of the ways our brain is wired is something called the reward cycle, okay? The reward pathway. And that reward pathway is designed to do two things, okay? Make babies and eat, okay? That's really what it's about. And if this cycle or this pathway in your brain gets affixed to something else, like riding bicycles or smoking tobacco or taking opiates, guess what? You're stuck with that. Now we call that a habit, but that's really just a cycle. You'll notice that I never said anything about volition. Nobody decided that they wanted to do this. This is not a lifestyle decision or a choice. This is not a moral failing, whatever that is. This is about biology. Addiction is it's the whole enchilada. It's not just the drug, okay? When you're using heroin to occupy your receptors, whether it's to prevent getting sick or to get high, okay, you have to do a lot of stuff, right, to get the substance. You gotta sell things, you gotta steal things, you gotta hurt people, you gotta put yourself at risk, you gotta do things that you regret. That's the addiction syndrome. You gotta do a lot of bad stuff because you can't go down to CVS and buy it, all right?
You know, God knows Ary has stole everything that he can get his hands on from me. Even to the point of stealing my wedding band and my diamond. I'm worried, constantly. I don't want to leave him in the house, and I never do. You know, I had to go to work this morning, and he was up when I got home, but I don't like to leave him here because I don't trust him. And that's a horrible thing, not to trust somebody in your home. You know, but it is what it is. Oh yeah, it's my possessions, you know. I don't know what's left in the garage. I think pretty much he has taken whatever tools out there that he wanted. He stole everything from his father. Loads and loads and thousands of dollars worth of power tools, power saws, you know, cameras, guns, everything. You know, the drug it's just ruins everybody's life. Not just his, but everybody that's close to him.
So have you or
No, I have not forgiven him, and I'm not going to. So he is here because he has no place else to go. And he came back this last time because he had something wrong with his leg and infection, and we thought he was going to lose it if he didn't get to the doctor. So that's why he's here.
Okay.
But otherwise, he would not be here.
So with all those things that he's done to you, why do you still feel compelled to?
He is still my grandson, regardless.
Yeah.
We're not addressing the problem. If we don't address the problem will not fix itself. It will just fester and get worse. We have this water main, right, and a spigot is turned all the way up and the water is just rushing out. Well, just imagine those are the addicts that society is producing, okay? So for every drop of water that is absorbed, okay, so we'll take that drop of water as one addict. But if you're pumping out a gallon of water a minute and you're only drying up one drop a minute, you can see the problem, right? What you have to do is you have to crank that spigot down. And how do you do that? You do that with prevention and education and treatment and recovery and law enforcement and prosecution. The war on drugs was kicked right to law enforcement. And I said, here you go. We declared war on drugs. You guys got it. Okay, well, no, we didn't have it. We didn't have the resources. We didn't have the training. All right, and then when 30 years later, when everybody's poking law enforcement in the eye and saying, hey, you guys goofed up the war on drugs, it failed. Well, no. The war on drugs was lost by society, right? Get back to permissive and semi-permissive attitudes about drugs. You know, we didn't do the education piece correctly. We didn't do the treatment recovery piece correctly. And we didn't do the law enforcement prosecution piece correctly. And in our haste to save tax dollars, we cut out vocational training in the prisons and the incarceration centers, and we cut out, you know, treatment, and we cut out educational opportunities, and those were huge mistakes. Those were huge mistakes. So let me tell you what I've been recommending to the policymakers here in New Hampshire is that, you know, we years ago, because of cost cutting, we got away from, in the prisons and in the jails, we got away from drug treatment and drug prevention. We got away from vocational and educational opportunities for prisoners. And I think you got to bring those back. And I think that will help get at the problem. So let me explain. So if we make an arrest, say, on an addict or a drug dealer, and they go away to prison, so let's get that person treated, and let's get that person, if they're going to be in that facility, pardon the pun, but we have a captive audience. Let's get those people treated in that residential facility while they're paying their penance to society for committing bad acts. And once they're treated, let's get them into a vocational or an educational program, so either they're getting a license, they're getting a professional license, or they're finishing their college degree. Now you've given them the tools to be successful in society when they come out. Yes, it's expensive, but if we don't do this, it'll be 3 times expensive 20 years from now.
How many times do you think you've been arrested?
To be honest, I'm not exactly sure, but like it's an entirely absurd number. Like it really is. Like, I mean,
is 100 too high?
No, that might be way too low. Yeah, like I mean, I've been arrested for some crazy things. Like I mean, at one point in time, I had a gang of 4 people that went with me, and we went out to the train tracks in Ossipee and started pulling up the spikes. And you pull the spikes out, and like I mean, they're heavy iron. And if you pull the spikes out, there's a metal plate underneath the track, and you can rip the track out off the railroad tie, and we rip the plate out from underneath the track, and we used to like steal those. And I've gotten arrested for that. We like stole literally like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of metal off the railroad. We get like $200 or $300 every day for ripping up the railroad.
Why were you?
Because we needed money to get high. I was living in a house with no power and like 4 other heroin addicts, and like we just like needed to get high every day. Like I honestly, like I'm the only person the corrections officers, they say I'm the only person they know who like enjoys going to jail. Because I mean, I go in there, I have a good time. Because pretty much life is what you make it. So, you know, you get there, you have a roof over your head, you have 3 square meals a day. I don't have to worry about where I'm going to sleep that night. I don't worry about my next high. I don't have to worry about where my next meal is. I don't have to worry about anything. You know, pretty much like it's like being in preschool. You get taken care of. They bring you your snack when it's snack time. You know, they give you books to read. You know, you have somewhere to sleep. You know, you have clean clothes. You know, you have somewhere to take a shower. After an arrest and stuff, I've been offered like different opportunities to like get help, to go get help on my own, but never actually been put on a path to go get help. And then like leaving jail from like doing a sentence, like they open the door and you walk out. I've been arrested with no shoes on before and like walked out of jail 6 months later with no shoes on in the winter wearing a pair of shorts.
So everybody comes to recovery, if they come to recovery, in different ways. Sometimes they come to the conclusion that this is not working for them. Or they get a lot of feedback from the environment around them that this is not working for them. Sometimes the feedback is in the form of jail time, or being shot, or being stabbed, or their wife walking out of them, or their girlfriend screaming at them, or them losing access to their kids, okay? Or they're losing their job. If somebody truly wants to stop the lifestyle they're in, or want to change direction and don't want to take drugs anymore, often they'll seek help. Sometimes they go to an emergency room, they talk to their doctor, talk to a counselor. Sometimes they'll submit themselves to a detox and try to get off of it, because the dosing for heroin is 4 hours. try to have a life where you have to stop and engage in drug seeking and drug using behavior every 4 hours. You can't have a life. There's no life. There's nothing to be done. Your whole life is circled around maintaining those receptors being occupied. If you could find a way to keep those receptors occupied without the euphoria, people would get back to their lives, they could stop that whole cycle. That was methadone, okay? And so methadone is called an agonist, and it works really, really well. It's got a long half-life. It does more than make you feel better. It also since it occupies the receptors, it makes it less likely for other opioids to add to it. It's not perfect, but it helps.
I have gone to rehab in the past, yes, but it was a court-ordered rehab. It was a really positive place to be for like the time that I was there and stuff, and like it was a good place to go and get sober and get cleaned up, get you off, get me off the street and like help get my life together. And when I left rehab, I actually did well for like quite a while. I left rehab and I was sober. I had like 2.5 months of sober time in after rehab. So I mean, I did well with rehab, but I don't even remember what it was. Like some stupid thing came up and happened, and next thing I know, I was getting high every day again. For me to not fall back into this lifestyle, I realistically can't come home. Like if I come back here, I'm eventually gonna get dragged into it. I would have to go somewhere, get a job. I would have to go somewhere, get a job, develop a support system, and focus on myself and doing well. And that's the only way to do it. The second I talk to like my daughter's mother or anybody else I know that's a drug addict, I'm gonna get sucked right back into the game, and I know it. It's really difficult to stay away because like my daughter's mother's a drug addict, my 2 best friends are drug addicts, and I've been friends with them for 7 years and stuff like that. So it's the people that I go to talk about shit, like when I'm not having when I'm not having a good day, or the people that I count on to support me like when I need help and like emotional support and stuff, are drug addicts. So it's hard to be able to like be in touch with them and talk to them and then still stay clean, because eventually, like as much as some of them try to keep it away from me, eventually like it bleeds over into my life as well. I wouldn't sacrifice my daughter for the world. That's my #1 fight, like all day, every day. It's ridiculous to not be willing to give her up for myself to be clean and stuff, but knowing that like there's no way I can ever really be there for her in her life if I'm high. But it's just so difficult to like, when that's my drive to get sober, it's hard to give her up to get sober. So it's just like, it's like a really, really bad conundrum. Like it's a circle I get caught in.
I don't know. This town, I don't know. It's like if you have a bullseye on you, it's just there always, and certain people they're after constantly, and I don't know, they just don't clean it up. I think that if this town had a place that they could go for rehab, stay there for 30 days, it may help. And people may come out and never help, but I think they should have the opportunity. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to get better. I have no idea. It's a day-by-day situation. If he goes out here, you wonder if it's going to be the overdose. Every time the phone rings at night, at 10 o'clock at night, and he's not here, is this the call? Is he dead? Is he at the hospital? I have some friends at EMTs, and they've picked him up a few times. So I don't know what the future is.
10 years down the road, to be honest, I hope I'm living clean and sober. I hope I'm doing well. I'd like to still be like in this general area of New Hampshire, maybe not necessarily Ossipee or Wolfboro, but like in this like the northern part of New Hampshire. I realistically like to see myself working working, maybe managing a restaurant or something like that, or a bar or something of that nature. Or if I really could, like, I'd love to own one. That's one of my dreams, is own a restaurant. Realistically, I don't see myself being alive in 10 years. Realistically, like, I could die any minute of any day from putting a needle in my arm with too much heroin in it, and I realize that. I have absolutely no fear of death. Like, sometimes I expect it half the time, and sometimes I pray for it, to be honest. Like, I mean, this life is not one to live.